I want to get now to that ruling or the procedural things that went down today in New York. Jessica Levinson joins us now to discuss what developed today in terms of the prosecutors and what they said about the future of the criminal conviction of now President-elect Trump. Jessica Levinson, what's your take on what happened today and what its bottom line meaning is?
The bottom line here is we have the first judge in the country who's facing the question of what do you do when you have a president-elect who's a convicted felon? And when there are still questions in this case, we have Judge Merchan, a state court judge, the first judge, as far as we know, in our nation's history to ever face this specific question. Or I should say, we certainly do know. And the question is, we have a conviction. And what do we do about this? Because this is not a conviction of Donald Smith, right? It's a conviction of Donald Trump. And so what does it mean in terms of whether or not the case will be dismissed outright, which is certainly what the Trump team wants, whether or not sentencing will include only a penalty and not incarceration, which is certainly a middle ground, or whether or not sentencing will be delayed until after the next Trump administration. All of these questions, we've never been here before. So that's what's happening today. I think the next thing major that will happen is there will be motion practice, not just the letters that we've seen, but there will be motions filed by both sides, and then there'll be a hearing.
And Jessica, for our audience who might be saying, can you just wake me when we know the answers to these questions? When would we might be able to wake them to say, I mean, this has to be resolved before January 20th, does it not?
Yes. I mean, in some ways, no resolution is a resolution.
Is a resolution, exactly.
But yes, Major, you're exactly right. So there has to be some sort of resolution. I think what we're looking at here, and let's remember that we're still waiting on Judge Merchan to say whether or not that Supreme Court immunity decision that we've talked about has any bearing on this case, and whether or not any of the facts that served as the basis of the conviction were official acts such that they would be subject to presidential immunity. So let's put that to the side. When can we wake people? I would say in December. Let's be clear that there'll be motion practice. The judge will make a decision, and I expect there will be one of two options in all seriousness. One will be there will be a sentencing before January 20th, and it will include no jail time. The other is we will just push everything until after the next administration.
And Jessica, a serious question. Based on your reading of the Supreme Court's ruling on presidential immunity, do you think you could plausibly argue, as an attorney for President-elect Trump, that signing these checks, which were then misidentified, and that was the criminal act that the jury found the president guilty of, while in office, checks that were in order to pay off Stormy Daniels, does that fall under the Supreme Court's definition, broadly speaking, of official acts?
So in my view, that is not a strong argument. You can certainly make the argument, but just because you're signing checks in the Oval Office does not mean that it's an official act. And we know the whole theory behind the hush money payment trial, Major, is that it was election interference. It was candidate Trump, not President Trump, but candidate Trump trying to bury a negative story about him in the lead up to the election. And what we have here is then candidate Trump becoming President Trump and essentially finalizing the payments while he was in the Oval Office. Not everything you do in the Oval Office is official conduct. I mean, let's say you have a conversation with your chief of staff even about where you want to go out for dinner. It's in the Oval Office, it's with your chief of staff, but that's private conduct. So in my view, it's not a strong legal argument to say this verdict should be tossed based on that immunity decision.
Clear, concise, and always precise on the law. Jessica Levinson, thank you very much.